Hi guys, my name is David and welcome back to my channel. Today I will be reviewing The Thief and the Wild by Seann Barbour. Seann a while ago sent me an email about this book and he wanted me to originally read it and do a video on it before it originally came out. I'm not sure what the release date was for this book, but it was definitely for this year. I will have it up on the screen somewhere. But because I was in between jobs, what happened with my previous job, and I was job hunting, and it was in that kind of transition in my life where I had to kind of like prioritize job hunting over reading. So I decided to pick this book up and I was reading a bit of it, and the pacing of it really took me back because it is slow, and I will go through that in a minute as well. So I had to temporarily DNF it, and because I was reading the Song of Ice and Fire series by George R. R. Martin, and I wouldn't really say that it was like fast paced and action packed. In the way it is and in the way it isn't. But the pacing of Seann's book to George's book is completely different from each other. So after I finished the current Song of Ice and Fire book that I was reading at that time, I decided to read Seann's book. I have never really felt, I wouldn't say torn, I would probably say confused about how I feel about a book that was sent to me. There are parts of it which I liked and some parts of it which I didn't like, and I have to admit some parts are completely forgettable. I even had to like really think up here about what actually happened or elements of the story. So before I go any further, I just want to say that I will have whatever information I have about Seann down below in the description. I have read his two previous books, which were both cosmic horror, well, horror and cosmic horror. The Last Day and The Moor, which I highly recommend. And when Seann reached out to me, he's one of these authors which I'm like, yes, I will read anything that you write or publish. You got a new book out, I don't care what it's about, I'll read it. And I think that Seann is an author which people aren't really reading a lot of or from, and people are not reading his stuff. You know, I mean, I haven't heard anyone in my little community reading a book from Seann. So before I get into this video, I just want to say that this is going to be an honest review. I'm not going to be biased and say, oh, Seann's a good friend of mine, I like his books, I want to keep reading his books, I want to keep him, on the, on my good side. I'm going to give you, and I'm going to give Seann my honest thoughts about this book. And with that said, this is going to be my own thoughts and feelings regarding it. And it's also going to be a spoiler-free video as well. So, The Thief and the Wild revolve around our main character called Jackson, who, as the title of the book suggests, he is a thief. This is an urban fantasy book, so the kind of city that he resides in, if you read Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson, it kind of give me that vibes of that city. Or if you haven't read Mistborn before, think about London in the industrial age. It's very dirty, there's loads of alleys and small roads going everywhere. Poverty is a massive thing in the city. People kind of keep to themselves a lot, but there is a sense of community and camaraderie within this city and location. But as I said, crime and thievery are how people get by. It doesn't mean that they are bad people. I mean, Jackson's not a bad person. He just needs to do what he does to survive. So at the start of the book, Jackson is employed by this gentleman to steal a wooden mask from a mansion from this rich lady, and in return he is given a substantial amount of money to do this. So he goes and steals this wooden mask, which happens to be a representation of the god called the Wild God. So this book is kind of, I wouldn't say religious heavy, or it's more religious focused. But in this, so if you think about God, Jesus, Satan, and heaven and hell, and the church kind of that is in this book, which the city is called New Elms. I'm pretty sure that's how you say it. Sean does know that I'm terrible at pronouncing certain things and names and words and cities and all that type of stuff. So apologies for that. But the Wild God is what this world classifies as Satan, the evil god. And then you have the good God, which does play a big part in the book. And them two gods are brothers. There was a big battle, there was a massive argument, there was a fight, and good supposedly triumphed over evil. The church in this book is run by this massive group of priests who do questionable things. Sean does take good and evil, and he does kind of like tip them on their heads. So the supposed bad guys are the good guys, and the good guys are the supposedly bad guys, if that made any sense. Their perspectives and their motives are kind of skewed, and kind of like how a good guy would do something bad for a good reason, or in their mind a good reason. So in order to do this good task, they would have to do something that's not necessarily nice. Hopefully I've made that completely understandable and clear, guys, because that's a big part of this book. That's a big element of this book. So going back to Jackson, he is not married or have any kids. He does have a sister who does have kids with this gentleman, who kind of looks down on Jackson, and he's kind of embarrassed that he has to take money from him to support his family. His sister is really loving. He's really good with the kids. There's one little girl who has a illness called the cold flu, and it's something that's really deadly in this world, and you could potentially die from it. As I said, poverty is a massive thing for this book and for this family. And Jackson even gives them money. He stops at a bakery, and we come across a woman called Fiona. I think that's what her name is in that shop. And he buys all these pastries with the money that he got from stealing the mask. And he goes to the family and gives it to his sister's kids and to his sister. And Jackson lives in a brothel, and run by a very protective woman called Miss Nora. And all the prostitutes in the book, don't actually worry, they don't go into any like hardcore sexual scenes. But because we are in a brothel and they are prostitutes, it doesn't really sugarcoat it about what they do. There is one prostitute in the book which kind of has a crush on Jackson, called Lily. It's very sweet, but don't expect very much from that kind of plot point. It doesn't really seem to go that far. So everything seems to be going great for Jackson. He is just completed a job, and there was no problems apparently, and he got paid a lot of money for it, and he's just going around kind of using that to spread some joy. He buys, as I said, he buys bakery stuff for his sister and her family. He supports a local business by buying this, and I'm pretty sure he even gives Miss Nora and these prostitutes some of this as well. And he does have a friend called Eric who lives in this massive mansion, and we don't really know much about Eric, but Jackson is saying that he's been working with Eric for a long time. He's kind of like this, I don't really want to say if mob boss is the right term, but that's more or less what Eric is. And he's been going through all these jobs with him, and Jackson's very loyal to Eric, and he looks up to him, and he even loves him as well. And I don't really think that Seann goes into extreme detail about it, but I'm pretty sure that when I say Jackson loves Eric, I do mean that. I mean, I do mean it like that. Jackson has been confronted by the woman who he stole the mask from, and she basically wants it back. She's annoyed, she wants it back. But then Jackson discovers that the wild god was trapped in this wooden mask, and I'm not sure exactly how it happens. I think that he was in possession of it, or maybe when he touched the mask, this happened. Somehow the wild god got infused with him. It went inside of him, and as a result of this happening, he has a specific amount of time. I think it was 8 days until he completely disappears, until Jackson completely disappears and ceases to be, and he merges with the wild god. And if this happens, Jackson will cease to be. He won't necessarily die. He will just be a small part of this god which will be resurrected. Now the wild god, as I said, is supposed to be Satan and the devil and the evil person in this story, but he's always talking about life and people living it, and he's always talking about his environment and trees and plants and the rivers and how good life is, and that you should appreciate life and live life as well. So he doesn't really have any evil intention, or he's not bad or anything like that. He does give Jackson some supernatural powers, which he can, for example, he can control all these tree roots to be sentient and like attack people. But when he does use these powers, he accelerates and reduces the time which he is human, and accelerates the time which he will eventually disappear. So they kind of employ Jackson to steal back the mask so they can have it back. And we find out that the priests are building these machines, kind of like Terminators, that have got very powerful weaponry to like control the people and control the hierarchy, because in their minds they want to exterminate everyone that is poor, everyone that's a thief, everyone that they consider beneath them. A hierarchy in society is also what they want to achieve. They want to achieve paradise, what they consider paradise, and everyone to be superior and at the same level of the social hierarchy as what they perceive their society to be. So every poor person, every thief, which happens to be the majority of this city, is going to eventually, in their great plan, be killed and eradicated. So they have to try to get their mask back from Jackson after he takes it. And there is a he's kind of on the run with this rich woman and her group of friends as they are running away from these priests. Jackson does say to all of his friends that this is what's going to happen, because everyone looks up to these priests in this city, but he tells them, look, this is what's going down, you should get out of this city, and yeah, it's not going to be good for you if you stay. And yeah, it's just a chase at the end where they have to get away from these priests and try to keep this mask away from them. There is loads of scenes where the wild god tells us about his brother and how they had this massive battle, as I said, and he does have a appearance at the end where both these gods have a fight. And yeah, you may be thinking to yourself, well, what's the point of this story if Jackson is going to eventually disappear and die, which is very, very likely? Then why should we really care? But he has to try to think, right, I can eventually let this wild god take me over, which he does have a psychic connection with this wild god. He can have conversations with this entity, and it also can see him, so that it's not really an enemy within him. So we can either let this wild god consume his body and his entity, or he could try to find a potential way of not letting this happen. There is a unique character within this book, which is a cat that's got 3 eyes, and two normal one on its forehead, and it doesn't talk. It doesn't, it's not sentient. It doesn't have any telepathic abilities. But you can see that this cat has a it can help people. It does know what it's doing, but it's very sweet, and it's kind of a somewhat major character. We don't really know about where the cat comes from or what his intentions are, but it's a sweet character. So the book was really slow. This is a slow burn, so don't expect a lot of action and fast-paced stuff happening in this book. Take your time with it. It's going to be a slow and enjoyable journey. Seann does describe a lot about how, especially at the end, where he describes his environments, and it's all melancholy as well, and it made me think about when I'm in the park, when I'm walking around and when I'm looking at everything, and it's all like, everything's good. So I'm not sure if that made any sense, but that's as best as I can describe it. This is a lot different than Seann's recent 2 books, which are both horror. And I knew going into this that this was fantasy, but I have to admit, this is probably the weakest of Seann's books that I have personally read. I'm not saying that it's rubbish and you shouldn't read it, I'm not saying that at all, but if I had to pick up one of these books again, I would probably pick up The Last Day or The Moor, potentially over this. So I think that I would rate this I was going to rate it a 2.5 stars when I was thinking about it, but I'm like, no, this book deserves to have at least 3 stars. So that's what I'm going to give it. I'm going to give this book a 3 stars out of 5. If you do read this book, if you are into urban fantasy and slow burns and good characters, Seann's more of a character-driven author rather than a story-based author or a plot-driven author, or whatever the term is. There is not much of world building in this book. It's definitely not like Song of Ice and Fire. But if you like a slow burn and something that you can read on a rainy day with a cup of tea and you're just chilling out and you're enjoying life, then I would definitely recommend this book. But as I said, don't expect Lord of the Rings or something like that. This is not what you're going to get. But with that said, it was a interesting read. So that's been my review, guys. Hopefully I've done it justice. I didn't really want to say too much in the end. I didn't want to say too little. Let me know if you have read it. What did you think about it? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Have I piqued your interest to pick it up and give it a read? And I just want to say to Seann, thank you so much for bringing this book to my attention. He did send me a free copy of it on my Kindle, well, a digital copy, and I put it on my Kindle. So I just want to say to him, thank you so much. And even though I didn't enjoy this book nearly as much as your horror books, I'm still deeply interested in reading anything that you write and publish in the future, and that does include fantasy. So thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to read your book. I'm just sorry it took me a while to get to it. And for those of you who are watching this, please read a book by Seann, whether it's this one, The Last Day, or The More. Just give the dude a chance. He is so good, and I mean, he's not going to completely blow your mind, but he's going to make you turn your head and make you pay attention to him. So yeah, that's what I've got to say, guys. That's been my video. So thank you for watching, and I will see you in my next one.